boldly engaging the mindless propaganda of our time, apparently with reason. This is Rage of the Age.
This is Rage of the Age, and we have with us a U.S. Navy veteran of 13 and a half years. He left September 2017 because of a desire to serve his country through leadership in the political realm. He is currently running against Maxine Waters to represent District 43 for California in the U.S. House of Representatives, and they have an upcoming rally in that district at sometime soon to be determined when everything's put together. I want to introduce to you today Joe Collins. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate you being with us today. And I have to say, either you enjoy pain or you have a lot of courage because you are running against, I guess I could say, the great Maxine Waters. Not that I see her as great, but I mean, when you look at what you're going up against, she's the incumbent. She has an immense political clout. She's been representing that district since, I think, 2013. She's been representing California district since 1991. She always wins like over 70% of the votes in every election she goes in.
Yep.
You're stepping into the ring with a heavyweight here. Do you think you can beat her? And if so, how do you plan to do that?
I mean, if I have to think about it, then I shouldn't do it. You know how it is in the military. You dive head first. So
that's right.
I mean, like, we're gonna win. We're gonna win without a doubt. And the reason why I believe that is because it's about time. I mean, she's been in there for over 30 years, and everyone is looking for something new. But they want someone who they can identify with, someone who actually has leadership qualities and leadership experience. And so I think that's something that I definitely bring to the table. Along with the fact that I'm from the district, born and raised, and she was a congressperson when I was a child. I have to mention that. Yeah. But I mean, 70% of a vote doesn't faze me a bit. We can definitely win. We've been very visible in our district. We've been doing a lot for everyone in our district, especially since COVID-19.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely say then you have some courage, and yeah, I think you're right. It's about time. Yeah. She's been in power. Well, I would broaden this. The Democrats have been in power in California, that district, most of that state for decades now.
Yeah, like 50 years or something.
It's like, at what point when you have all that power, are you going to actually fix things and make progress come without having to blame someone else for it? What are some of the things you're hearing in the district that people would like to see changed?
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing is homelessness. I mean, we have the largest homeless population in the entire country, right? In California. I think we're tying between Sacramento and Los Angeles for the amount of homeless people. No, San Francisco and Sacramento for the amount of homeless people that we have in our streets. But like, I mean, you can't walk down the street. You can't even walk to the beach right now and not see a homeless person. And taxes was probably be the second one. We're the second highest taxed state in our country, and it's ridiculous, especially for the amount of tourism that we get here in California. I mean, that's part of the reason why we have a lot of homeless people is the taxes and the lack of quality jobs and education.
Now, I've heard, through news reports and articles, blogs, videos, that California has this homeless problem. How bad is it really? I mean, you're seeing it firsthand. Is it like literally they're just homeless people everywhere you look?
I'm not gonna say they are everywhere you look, and the reason why I say that is because they are in places they're hidden. They're hidden in places that people don't look, and so you can find a homeless encampment right underneath the freeway, or you can find it behind a gate that has a barrier so people can't see. And these are like entire homeless communities. I mean, they have 2-story tents and everything. I mean, these people, they almost have it together when it comes to perfecting the art of homelessness.
Wow. In your district specifically, you were talking about there's homelessness, there's crime, there's high gang activity,
yeah,
lack of education. you're from there, you said.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember you mentioning in your on your page that you were part of a drive-by shooting at one point,
Hmm.
that the rounds going into your house, hitting the family sofa. And has it changed any at all? Is it still just that bad?
I think that I think it's a little worse now. You know,
Oh, wow.
the reason why is because with the taxes and the poor leadership that we have in California, it drives the jobs out of California. The quality businesses are leaving. They don't want to pay the tax. I mean, look at Elon Musk. You know, he was one of the largest corporations that we had in the Los Angeles County area, and he's packing up and taking off because of taxes and COVID-19 and all this stuff. So I mean, you know, it's considerably worse.
Now, I've met quite a few people from California
Hmm.
leaving the state. I mean, I would guess I'd want to ask you, other than businesses leaving, are people? Uh, I'm trying to word this in a better way. Uh, People with means and that can actually benefit the state, who have skills,
Hmm.
who who are just tired and fed up of the state. I've run into all kinds of them just trying to get away from the state. And it's not like they hate California. They would rather live there, but given the choices, it's kind of messed up. Are you seeing like this fleeing of people from the state like that?
Yeah, I think people who can leave are leaving.
Wow.
You have a lot of people who want to leave, but they just don't have the money to leave. And you
Hmm.
have a lot of people who are very wealthy but have a vested interest in California that can't leave as well. So you have a lot of people that are kind of stuck in limbo. I mean, I was actually, when I got out the military, because I'm retired right now, I was gonna take off too, and I was like, well, I can't do it. I'm from here, so I have to be able to give back and
Right.
try to um, do what I can in order to make the situation better.
Right. The You're talking about a lack of leadership in that place. What is it that you're seeing that's lacking that you believe you can interject and make some things change?
Well, I'll tell you this. I said it before. COVID-19 has definitely shined a serious light on the type of leadership that we have. I mean, the peer transparency with this virus has been non-existent, especially in California and other major, not to knock the Democrats, other major Democrat states. And so you start to see, where is our representatives, the Maxine Waters, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Adam Schiffs, the people who've been actually, in most opinions, stand up leaders when it came to impeaching the president. Now we have a real issue that you cannot talk your way out of. We have an issue where you need action, and where are these people? And the answer is they're nowhere to be found. Not even, Gavin Newsom. He's even a little lost when it comes to this. Mayor Garcetti. We've been having meetings with him to try and guide him or figure out how we can create a fund that the community leaders and organizations can pull from in order to take care of the people who live in the city. I
Mm,
mean, it just attributes to everything that we have going on, from the poor jobs, the poor education, the poor medical facilities, the poor stores in the inner cities. It all attributes to poor leadership. And COVID-19 was that spotlight that shined on everything and said, hey, look what you guys got going on here, because they were not prepared.
right. It sounds as if it's the classic do nothing, don't risk anything type of leadership. That if I do nothing, I'm safe. But if I do something and it fails, then my head might roll. It's like they've been playing defense. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not, I wouldn't necessarily say that, because I think it's just cowardice when it
Mm,
comes to leadership. Because I mean, we can use our president for a prime example. He doesn't have all the greatest answers, or the greatest plan of action, but at least he does something. And when you do something, whether you win or whether you fail, or whether you succeed or lose, at least we know that you cared enough to try.
right.
What we have right now with the leadership in California, we have a lot of federal and a lot of local representatives that are not even trying. I mean, we don't
Right.
have a lot of city council members that are out doing anything. We don't have a lot of congressional or assembly members out doing anything. It's like you have people like myself in our private capacities donating money, donating food, getting with the community
Hmm.
organizations, making sure our senior citizens and homeless and people with low incomes are being taken care of through this crisis.
So I guess they just need some decisive leadership that where somebody just make a decision and actually carry it out. Then, right?
I think you need people to make decisions, period, because we're not getting anything. I mean, and it's easy to get on TV, and I watch Maxine Waters do this all the time. It's easy to get on TV at MSNBC and do a podcast and
Yeah.
complain about everything that's wrong. But at the
Right.
end of the day, she's not out here in the streets with us.
Right.
No person who is making a mockery of what we have going on is in the streets. They're just behind computers and they're talking the most trash about everything and everybody who's actually, trying to help our communities.
Wow. That means you must have made somebody's radar somewhere if they're talking about you like that,
I mean,
right?
I've been in the military 13 and a half years, U.S. Navy, as
Yeah.
a former veteran, as a veteran yourself, former Army. You know that we are probably the most outspoken person. The people, we're the most outspoken people in the United States, and we're at a point. Political party never mattered to me because I believe that that's a person's private business. So
Hmm.
I've been boisterous regardless of party preference. I bars none. If you can get reprimanded as a Democrat just as much as you can as a Republican, because no party is better than the other. We have to start working together and stop bashing each other so we can be beneficial for our people.
You mentioned your activity on the streets
Hmm.
in the district, and that you've contributed to charitable events or
Yeah.
activities or whatnot. Can you explain some of the things you've been involved with lately to try to deal with these things going on?
Well, we have a lot of organizations that reach out to me and ask me to, be a part of what they have going on in the communities, and I obliged. Um, So I've been able to donate money. I've been able to donate my time to a lot of events, a lot of
Hmm.
charity organizations that are doing great things for the people in the community. I know Community Reflections is one of the biggest ones that I donate to. Churches in Action is another one that I donate to. Parents of Watts is another one. I just got involved with Parents of Watts because of what they do in the community. A lot of churches, I had a pledge where I pledged $20,000 to the churches in my district because they take care of the communities as well.
Yes, they do.
And they don't have any people donated money to their churches because you couldn't go to church for the longest time.
That's right.
Um, so I've been able to be a blessing to others.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that is a disconnect between our representatives and the people, the
Yep.
areas they're actually supposed to represent. It's almost as if they don't even know what's happening in their own neck of the woods, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's because they don't
Um,
live there.
right. They
So.
don't live there. So
Mhm.
can you see yourself avoiding that trap in? Because I mean, she's in DC. That's where she works.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess over time maybe you'll drift being back where you're supposed to represent. Do you see yourself being more connected to the people you represent, not just they're a far gone memory now?
I don't think the people are going to allow me to disconnect from them, regardless of what happens. The
Amen.
biggest thing about Maxine Waters and the reason why she's able to be disconnected is because she's 82 years old. She doesn't
Uh,
move as fast she used to whenever she was, 50 and 40, just getting started in politics. But
right.
I don't plan on being in Congress that long. Sometimes we have to start training our predecessors, and that's
Mm,
one thing that people have failed to do. I mean, you look at Maxine Waters. Why has she been in office for over 30 years and not trained anybody to come up behind her to continue to make these strides for the community? I mean, the older you get, the more you lose mentally. We see that in Joe Biden right now. We see it in Nancy
yeah.
Pelosi right now. We see it in
Right.
Maxine Waters right now. So it's very important that legislators stop being selfish and start to train the next predecessors. I don't plan on being in office for 30 years, maybe like 8 to 10 years, and I'm training somebody else to do the right thing and continue to make um, value for our constituents.
So you're sort of imposing upon yourself like your own term limit, if you will.
Yeah, I got to. I have to. 13. They say once you get over 10 years of doing something, it's time to move on. Things become mundane. I don't want to be comfortable without. I don't want to be comfortable um, not doing anything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's what our politicians have done. They become comfortable without having to provide any type of value or opportunities for people in the district, and the people have been so used to not getting these things that they become comfortable with not receiving nothing. They've been comfortable with complaining, and I think that's
Yeah,
terrible.
I agree with you. So being out there in the 43rd district and intermingling with the actual people, talking with them, um, is there a growing frustration with leadership as is? Are they looking for better leadership?
Yeah, it's a growing frustration period, with leadership, with their life, with the education. It's
Mm,
like one of those things that anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and it's gonna go wrong because it has been going wrong. And
right.
we're just the one out there taking a blunt end of the stick. And I'm gonna tell you, it's worse being a Republican, having to deal with hardcore liberals every single day in California,
Hmm.
because you take when it's just like, I'm from South Central Los Angeles, and I was born and raised. Joined the Navy, came back, and I still feel the same things that I felt before. I joined the military here in LA. So when I identify with the people who live in my district, which are people who look like me, black men and women, Latinos, we have Asians, we have a small percentage of white people as well in our district. And when you identify with these people, you get a lot of heat from the Republican Party. It's like, oh, well, you're not a real Republican because we're doing this and you're not doing that. And then the Democrats is like, well, you're a Republican and Republicans think this of us. And, we're caught in the middle. And now it's just like, do I choose or do I just be me and I'll just take the heat from both sides? That's what I do. I'm like, look, I don't agree with everything that y'all talking about over here because it does not
Right.
apply. And you guys need to calm down because I'm trying to work with these people so we can get you the resources that you need.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
never ending battle.
Uh, Honestly, I don't think you're the only one in that battle.
Yeah.
I think nationwide,
Hmm.
because I consider myself a conservative, a Republican, but
Yeah.
there are things on some points someone would accuse me of being liberal,
Yeah.
because
Right.
of something I won't, follow along with, or, I'm not strict enough in my conservatism. And then there are some who would say they're liberal, but they lean a lot over on the conservative side. There's a spectrum for
Yeah.
everybody.
They got a lot of
Um,
a lot of
I don't,
definitions for people who are something.
I don't
Everybody
think
wants
it's
to be
going.
categorized.
Yeah, I don't think it's going away. But I guess what I appreciate hearing is you're actually representing the people,
Yeah, absolutely.
and that's what a representative does. You're
Yeah.
representing them. Um, so you're running on a Republican ticket, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what are the things that you represent in the Republican Party that are conservative that you want to bring there, as opposed to what the Democrats have had for decades?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, I wanna be able to represent freedom.
Mm,
Because I think that's one thing that a lot of people in my district don't have, and that's freedom. But I want them to have the freedom to assemble, the freedom to express themselves, the freedom to live their life without the intrusion of the government, the freedom for them to be able to use their own mind to
mm,
create their own
mm.
type of wealth and businesses and corporations and companies. I want them to have the freedom to do whatever it is that they feel in their heart that they want to do. You want to work a regular 9 to 5 job, that's where you're comfortable. Utilize your freedom to be the best at that position that you can, and I don't
Mm.
want anybody to be able to take away those persons' freedoms.
Yeah, I definitely consider that a conservative ideal,
Yeah,
more so
yeah,
than a liberal one, which seems to want to dominate everyone's choice and just coerce you into a corner or something.
right.
But on your page, it says that you uphold the Constitution of the United States of America.
Absolutely.
You want to promote fair treatment, equality, respect for all citizens of, and wait for it, our great country. You dared call the United States great. Oh my.
I fought for this
America.
country.
Yeah, I know.
That's whatever I fought for. You know.
Well, it's just there seems to be a growing discontentment uh, peddled by the left to hate all things America.
Hmm.
To every problem we have, it's something with America or America's past fault. And you know, you're coming into, I don't know, I'd say a demographic that has heard that over and over again. And you're talking about, you uphold the Constitution of the United States and freedoms and liberties, and for the citizens of our great country. Is that working with the people you're talking to? Can they resonate with that?
Oh, uh, you know what? The people in my community does not know what the Constitution is. You have a
Mm,
slight few.
Hmm.
We have a few moderates, and we have a few Republicans who understand what the Constitution is. But people are so oppressed, just by not oppressed like slavery oppressed, but they're oppressed by the current conditions in our state, that they don't even have time to think about this. It's either you working too much to try to make money to get your ends
Hmm.
close enough to wave at each other. Are you homeless?
Wow.
And if you're not one of those, you're super rich and you really just don't think about the issues that common people have going on. And
Right.
so, with the protests and everything going on right now, right?
Yes,
The
sir.
the hardest part about the protest is trying to make people understand that we have to work from the inside to make change on the outside.
Hmm.
It's so great. The protest, I think it's wonderful. The looting, I'm not for the looting. I think that's the dumbest stuff in the whole world. Like,
Yeah.
do not destroy your city. It takes money to build that, and the cities are already in debt. Stop doing it. It just blows my mind.
That's right.
But
That's right.
the you know the protests are great, but it's just like, I don't want the energy to die just at a protest because you get a conviction or you get what you want. You know what I'm saying? We
Right.
have to protest to remove legislation that's not effective, and we have to protest to get new legislation passed that's going to benefit the people of the United States. And that's
Yeah.
one thing that I'm seeing. I'm seeing we have aimless anger, right?
Ah,
It's just
yes.
like a toddler with an M16, fully automatic. You pull a button and then the gun shoots all over the place, and that's just what we have now. This
It
person
does.
made me upset. Let's go destroy all this stuff over here, destroy all this stuff over
Right.
here. And I'm just like, where's the legislation? So that's what me and my team has been preaching. Like, it's
Right.
fine, protests, but let us get the legislation in place so we can say, okay, so we've been protesting. This is what we want to get passed. This is what we want to get removed.
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. If you really like Rage of the Age, we want to encourage you to leave a review on the platform that you're listening to, but especially if you would like a copy of my book, Not in the Wind, Earthquake, or Fire, which is a first-hand account of my second deployment to Iraq, and it's filled with many spiritual insights. I'm going to give away 10 copies for free. And every week I will give out a copy for someone who leaves a review of this podcast. You can do that by going to Twitter, write your review, and then hashtag it Rage of the Age Now. Or you can go to Facebook, find our page, Rage of the Age, click the reviews, recommend us, and then write in your review. I hope next week to give away a copy of Not in the Wind, Earthquake, or Fire to someone who leaves a review.
You're listening to Rage of the Age. Rage of the Age. Politics, religion, economics, and history with a conservative bend.
I must say I'm totally caught off guard by the violence of the protest because, like
Oh yeah.
I have a friend who's his political views are like the opposite of mine,
Yeah.
and he's an atheist. I'm a Christian. I mean, he's like very opposite in a lot of ways, but we're still good friends. And he was like amazed that when George Floyd protests were kicking off, and he said everyone was after that officer. He needs to get lynched and he needs to be dealt with. And he was surprised because it was like people he thought who would defend him were saying that was wrong.
Yeah.
It's like the whole nation was in one agreement finally that that's wrong and we need to curb the abuse of the police. Everyone
Right.
was on board,
Yeah.
but then all of a sudden I want to say almost like it was instigated. Violence was kicked off everywhere,
Yeah.
and now everybody split apart again. When for that brief moment
Yeah.
we were in unity. I
That's
agree. The violence accomplished the exact opposite of what could have been done.
This is true.
Yes. So uh, you said that you were seeing the divisiveness and the rhetoric of the 2016 elections.
Mm-hmm.
We all did.
Yeah.
You're talking about unnecessary anger by the media,
Yeah.
no purpose or plan for the future. What was you at that time frame? What was you seeing exactly? And what was that final thing that pushed you that said, that's it, I'm entering into the political arena? What
Yeah.
was it?
It was just so much hatred,
Mm.
and one thing that got me was the media. It's like, how does the media push so much hate, for one person? and that person was Donald Trump, and I was just like, they were telling me, no, he said this, he said that, and I was just like, okay, he can't say that much stuff. It's like O.J. Simpson, right? You can't have that much evidence. This is ridiculous. And so I had to go back and start watching it, and I was like, oh no, they seriously lying on this guy because he didn't say that. They only showing clips of what they want you to see.
Right.
And
Right.
so I was like, you know what, I'm hopping in it. I'm hopping in it head first, and I, told my command. I'll start off as a presidential candidate, right? I was like, I'm running for president. You can't stop me, whatever. And I know I'm dead serious. This is a story. And I was like, all right, well, and then I end up getting administratively separated for to be able to run for public office, because you can't be in politics and the military at the same time, and I fell
Right.
in that gray area.
Right.
So I got out, and running for president was really hard, and so the
I
administration
bet.
reached out. They were like, all right, you got to choose something different. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll choose. I'll run for Congress. They asked me, they gave me a choice to run for Congress or a political action committee, or come on board the administration. I'm like, I'm not doing that because I don't want people calling me blackface for the president because I'm a black guy in his administration. That's not going to work for me. And I'm going to lose all my credibility in South LA. No,
Right.
but I'll run for Congress. I'll run for Congress against Maxine Waters because we do need change in Los Angeles. And we took off from there. I had to be honest, I did have had a few issues in the campaign. Well, my previous campaign manager, she wanted more money than work, and she deserved. It kind of gave me a black eye, me being a brand new candidate, and we started raising money,
Hmm.
and she took a tremendous amount of money, spent a tremendous amount of money, and we
Wow.
almost lost in the primary. And after the primary, I was like, fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. And then I put together a team that I liked, that, since I had an idea of what it is that I want to do. And,
Okay.
we've been rocking and rolling since then. So it's
So,
been a blessing.
so in the primary, you were running against another gentleman
Yeah.
for this opportunity to run in this coming November.
Yeah.
How did that primary go? Was that a tough fight for you? Other
Um,
than your campaign manager being crazy, I mean, was there?
Man, the toughest part about that is we didn't get to spend a lot of money on um, voter outreach because she was taking so much money that we didn't have money to spend on things that were actually important. She wanted to take me around and meet all these people and say, they're going to help you this, they're going to help you that, yada, yada, yada. Nobody helped us at the end of the day.
Oh
Nobody
man.
helped us. It was all on me. I think the last 3 or 4 weeks of the campaign, I was pushing social media and knocking doors and pushing social media and knocking doors, and we ended up coming out ahead. Um, but the reason why we came out ahead was because people actually liked me. The other guy had ran 3 or 4 times. He was a complete moron. He was a nuisance.
Hmm.
He had a lot of he was a younger gentleman, so he had a lot of they call it daddy issues, and it was just a mess. He was so immature about a lot of things.
Wow.
But we ended up
So
beating him,
he,
God bless.
yeah. So he had run numerous times already. So I
Yep.
mean, you were truly the newcomer in all aspects this
Oh
year
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
in all this.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
you were able to to vote from him
Hmm.
and in yourself.
Yeah.
But did he endorse you after all that?
Well, he's in jail, so it's impossible
Oh
for him to
my!
endorse anything. He can't endorse
Welcome to
nothing,
L.A. politics,
right?
baby.
But it's his fault. It's his fault. It's his own
Oh
fault
my
that he's in prison. I
goodness
didn't have nothing to
gracious!
do with that. Maxine didn't
Yeah.
have nothing to do with it. He let us. He had a mental breakdown and went all downhill from there. But
Wow.
uh,
Well,
you
I'm
know,
glad you knocked him off. Then I tell you, that's
absolutely.
we need some good
Yeah.
leadership, and that was apparently not it.
I told him, I was like, look, man, you need to drop out and endorse me because you're not going to beat me in South LA. I'm from here, so you need
Mhm.
to just back off and help me win. I'll hire you. I'll do whatever you need me to do,
Right.
but you're not going to beat me. And he thought I was lying. And I
Uh,
have that same message for Maxine. You're not going to beat me. I'm from South Central Los Angeles.
right.
She's from like Missouri or something like that, St. Louis. So she's not going to beat me in my home state.
Wait. So she's not even from that area at all.
No, no, she's from St. Louis. She came here in the '70s after she divorced her first husband,
Hmm.
and she went to USC, and then she got involved with the city council, then the assembly, and I don't know how she got into running for Congress, but then poof, there she goes. Then she enticed the '92 riots and blew up half of Watts with her racist rhetoric and everything. So this has just been a
Wow.
mess. She's an entire mess. People still like her. I don't know why.
That's what baffles me. I don't
Yep.
know why. And I was intrigued as to why this is like her third district in California.
Hmm.
And I'm like, why did she have to move districts around or
Well,
something?
well, you know,
You
they
know?
redistrict every couple of years. And so
Oh,
they redistrict her from up here to like sideways to now she got a place where nobody likes her. Yeah.
wow, wow. So, do you think she's going to get surprised this year?
She's already been surprised.
Yeah,
I
she.
mean, yeah, because we've been so because I still work as if I was in the military, up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go to sleep
There you
at
go.
12 o'clock at night, and
Yeah.
so my team hates it too, by the way. The new one I have. So it's just
Yeah.
like we move so fast and we do so much. We're able to
Yes.
raise a lot of money very easy. I'm a broker, so I know how to raise money, especially being a businessman. Um, and we're able to maneuver the money in such a way that we have our radio advertisement. We're on every single major radio. We're about to kick off a radio show in 2 weeks with a major radio network, CRN. God bless them for allowing us the
Oh
opportunity.
wow, that's cool.
Um, and we are also involved in almost every single community organization in South LA right now, since they are providing for the community. We actually took our office and put it right in the heart of South Central Los Angeles, a couple of blocks from where I grew up at. Um, and I have not met one person that says, "I hate you, Joe Collins." I met a lot of people that says, "I don't like you," but I never heard anybody say, I absolutely hate you. I piss people off. It happens. But,
Well, I'm glad nobody hates you.
yeah, it's
At least not
impossible.
yet.
It's impossible.
Yeah. What's the hate about you, man? That's so you mentioned you're a broker. Do you have an extensive business background?
I'm licensed. I got licensed while I was in the military, health and life insurance. And I did it because I wanted to start helping people become financially savvy and also build up some type of retirement. I started when I was in the military, and military is important to me. So I used to hold classes on base after I got my license to teach them. Okay, so these are financial products that you can use. Invest this amount of money so you can be here. You can get this for your students, stuff like that. And so these are the
Okay.
same concepts that I'm going to bring to South Los Angeles. I have a team right now that that we're putting together to be able to do. COVID-19 is stopping us from doing a lot of stuff, but we're going to be putting this stuff together.
If I understand right, Maxine Waters is the current chair of the committee for the financial services, and it seems like she's having like this wrestling contest with the banks right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if and I don't have all the details yet, so I don't want to pass judgment on it, but
Uh,
it's like all the financial institutions are up in arms with whatever she's trying to pull off.
Yeah. You know what? When you talk about somebody who really doesn't know how to balance a checkbook, how is this person like legitimately qualified to be over the House Financial Committee? Like you go after banks about things that the banks are not even doing, but you're so convinced that they're doing these things. The housing interest rates, it's not federal. It's the actual bank. People have bad credit. So what can we do to help people improve the credit ratings? Or be able to use the states to buy houses. It's like like simple stuff. I think I saw when I stopped following the whole thing was when she had got on the banks about school loans, and the banks was like, "Man, we haven't provided school loans in like 10 years. You guys stopped that 10 years ago for us providing school loans." And I was just like, "Jesus, this is so embarrassing." And she's the
Right, right.
representative of Los Angeles, and so
Wow.
another thing that's embarrassing about her being the House Finance Committee chair is you look at the condition of South Los Angeles, right? How can you have this much money be able to pass through
Hmm.
your hands and you can't even swing none to rebuild the district? I mean, come on.
Right,
Scott Peters
right.
is right down the street in northern San Diego County. He has a beautiful district. He's not in charge of the House Finance Committee, and he doesn't talk nearly as much trash as Maxine Waters does. But for some reason, Scott's figure out how to make his district very nice, and Maxine has figured
Hmm.
out how to keep her district very poor. And it's
Wow.
absolutely pathetic.
All right. So for the record, Joe Collins, you do know how to balance a checkbook. Is that
Oh,
right?
absolutely, absolutely.
That's very necessary.
My children ask me, "Daddy, how do you have so much money?" I'm like, "Hold on, wait a minute, wait. Daddy does not have a lot of money. Daddy knows
Yeah.
how to save and balance a checkbook." So you tell kids you got a
Yeah.
lot of money, they want to buy all type of stuff. It's like,
Oh
oh
yes,
yeah,
yes. That's definitely financial sense does matter.
yep.
Uh, so the other gentleman you mentioned was able to do work in his district and accomplish something.
Hmm.
So Maxine Waters, with all her clout, all of her political pull, has done nothing for the
Hmm.
district at all.
Nope. And even when I thought she did, she didn't. She's really good at giving favors. I thought that she had a school with her name on it, but then come to find out, she wasn't even the person who built the school, and she wasn't even the person who put her name on it. Somebody did it for her to make her look good. So
Uh-huh.
now I can't, aside from personal favors, I can't think of not one thing that she's done to help the people in the district.
My goodness.
Her family's
So,
very wealthy, though. Her family, she's done very well to help her family get wealthy.
all right. So let's say you pull off this upset. I'm rooting for you, Joe.
Yeah.
I want you to clean her clock. But if let's say you get elected to this position,
Mm-hmm.
all right, you're talking about, having a plan, that leadership, that decisive leadership.
Yeah.
What are you going to start doing for your district when you get elected?
The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sue the bejesus out of California and get them back in line with the federal constitution to get rid of these taxes. After we get rid of the taxes, we can use the opportunity zones to incentivize business to come back to South LA and hire people that live in our communities, quality jobs, not just regular jobs, not Walmart. I mean,
Right.
like trade jobs people can like actually retire from, tech jobs, things of that nature. The next thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna tackle the education program. We like number 47 or 46 in the nation. We're gonna get that education taken care of. We need to be up like in the top 5. We're California, everybody looks to California. We have the whole tech industry is right in Northern California. How come we
That's
got
right.
poor education? It doesn't make sense. It blows my mind. But that's the next thing I'm gonna do. Also we got to start rebuilding. California, Los Angeles, California is in dire need of renovations, so we got to get that taken care of. But we have to make sure that the people are taken care of also, which is why we need to provide the quality jobs. Um, we also need to rebuild that relationship between the law enforcement and the community. That's going to be very important because we don't want people tearing up new things that we're building and
Right.
taking a step back on the process the progress that we're trying to make. Um, and also, we're going to get that financial literacy in our district. We need to get people with some adequate saving plans and retirement
Yes.
plans, so they can be taken care of, build some type of generational wealth. Even if it's not going to benefit our generation, if it benefits the generation behind us, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I definitely like what you're talking about. I don't even think that's just needed for just your district, but a lot of places around this country
Yeah.
could, take a page from that playbook and maybe put into action there.
Yep.
Let's say somebody's listening right now and whether they're there or in California, or even they're like, they can be anywhere in the world for all we know. But they're like, I do want to see Maxine Waters come down. I'd like to see this guy, Joe, get in there and actually try something to make it work. And and everything he said is like, it resonates with me. And you know what? Go, Joe. I'm for Joe. What can they do to help you right now? How can they line up with you to make this happen?
What you can do is go to my website, joecollinsforcongress.com. Everything is all spelled out. Fill out a volunteer form. Doesn't matter if you're across the country. We can get you on the phones, making phone calls for us. Please donate. That always helps. We've been taking a lot of money and putting it back into our community to help people during the shutdown, especially in California. The people low income, they need a lot of help. So does our homeless. And follow me on social media, Joe Collins, 43rd on Twitter. Then you have Collins for Congress 43 on Instagram and Facebook. And if you engage me, I might engage back. So forewarning, I have been in the military. But yeah, we need all the support that we can get.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, it's been wonderful having you here with this show. I am rooting for you. I'm going to keep popping in and checking up on you, and every little victory and advance you make, I'm gonna be like, yes, go, Joe. That's my man.
Thank you.
Knock Maxine out. And I thank you for being with us today.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Now it's time for the question of the week. Last week's question of the week was, what makes socialism so appealing? And I want to highlight a response by Michael Helm, who said, I believe people just want things given to them. It's a failed system that eliminates the individual's desire to succeed because they will not get the full benefits from the fruit of their labor. Michael, I appreciate your feedback to that question, and I appreciate all the others who have commented to that question just the same. Very good points made there in your response. This week's question of the week is, should we have term limits for Congress? I'm going to post that question on the Rage of the Age page on Facebook, and I'm going to post it on Rage of the Age Now on Twitter. If you see that question, go ahead and respond to that question, and we will bring up responses again next week during this Question of the Week segment. Again, the question of the week is, should we have term limits for Congress?
You're listening to Rage of the Age. Rage of the Age. Politics, religion, economics, and history with a conservative bend.
For this essay segment, I want to talk about long-term incumbency. An incumbency is the term that a person serves in a particular position, so that when things happen during that time frame or things and decisions that they made while in that position, you would say that during their incumbency, they did this or did not do this sort of thing. So if something happened and it wasn't during your incumbency, it's like, I had no part in making that decision. You can't lay that at my feet. That's the idea of what incumbency is. But I want to talk about when somebody becomes an incumbent for so long. Is that good or bad? It's a question I've wrestled with for quite some time. And of course, this ties to the conversation that has been going around the country and is gaining more and more in popularity and steam, where we want to put term limits on our leaders, especially in Congress, because you've had many who have served decades, sometimes 30 years, maybe even more, in as a congressperson or senator, and it's like anyone that runs against them will never beat them. There's never going to be a change there. And I've often wondered to myself, is that a good idea or is that a bad idea? Should we have term limits? Should we not have term limits? And I thought about it. I weighed the pros and cons, as I'm prone to do. I don't like to immediately be pinned into a corner of what I must support because I'm a conservative, because one thing I believe conservatives must stick to that is inherent to them is that you use your reason. You weigh your pros and cons. You consider the morality and the rights and wrongs. You consider cause and effect, things like this. When I look at this, there's a little troubling to me on both ends. First, what I see as the cons with the having term limits on our representatives in Congress. If you look at the idea of an elected official, the one thing that is supposed to make them accountable to the people that they represent and to make them true representatives of the constituency that they represent, that you are actually representing them, and that you're speaking on their behalf. The one way to keep them honest is if a representative decides to go off on a tangent somewhere and just is not going to listen to those who voted for them, well, they can then go to the poll and vote them out of their position. And this is meant to be that one thing that you can hold over your representatives' heads. If you will not support this issue, if you will not enact this legislation, if you will not oppose what's going on, then you're not going to have a job come next election. Well, as it turns out, that's not always exercised, though, is it? See, one of the worries I had about the term limits is, let's say you give someone 2 terms. And let's use that for the example of, say, the U.S. Senate. The current term for a senator is 6 years. So let's say there's a successful attempt to place term limits, and let's say, like the president, we give them 2 terms. 2 terms, no more, and then you can't be a senator no more. Well, the first 6 years, they may listen to their constituency because they have to face a re-election at the end of their term. But see, if they know they're only serving 2 terms, once they are elected that second time, they have then 6 years to basically do whatever they want and not listen to their constituency. That's the downside I see with term limits if we simply just place the term limit. Yet at the same time, I'm not oblivious to the dangers of someone who is in a position that no matter how corrupt they become, no matter how incorrigible they are, no matter how destructive they are, even to the people they represent, somehow they keep getting reelected anyway due to whatever circumstances, and they never get thrown out. It is known in the strategy of politics that typically the incumbent has the advantage on the newcomer. Why? They have a recognized name. They have made connections with people within the political sphere that's useful for winning elections, that sometimes the newcomer does not have that kind of reach, that kind of cooperation, doesn't know the right elbows to rub, if you remember the expression. Nonetheless, we know that sometimes an incumbent has to be beaten. Otherwise, the idea of democracy is almost non-existent. Like, they're guaranteed to win no matter what. How is that a true democracy? How is that a republic that we will refuse to hold our people accountable? But nonetheless, that is what tends to happen sometimes. So we find ourselves at this threshold. Do we have the term limits? Do we not have the term limits? When we talk with Joe Collins today, he's running against Maxine Waters. She has been entrenched in California's politics since the 70s, since the 1970s. And she has been elected continuously, gaining 70% of the vote. Now, on one hand, you can say, well, if the people want to vote her in, she should stay in. But the other perspective is going to look at it and say, well, she's been there for too long. No one can have a fair shot in running for anything to change things, because she's just going to win effortlessly. It's like she's a powerhouse. Any newcomers are going to get crushed. And so term limits is thus appealing for those who want to shake up the field a little bit, to change up who sits there for, since the 1970s, you've been representing these districts in California. If someone new wants to come along, how is that going to happen when the incumbency has the advantage? Look at Joe Collins, for example. He's actually from the district. He lives in the area. He grew up there as a child, and he grew up there for a number of years living there. And he had to leave, unfortunately, because of the violence in the area. Actual rounds from a drive-by going through the house, hitting a couch where oftentimes members of the family would be sitting that could have been hit. So the mother naturally moved the children away somewhere else safer to raise them in a better environment, to give them opportunities that they were not going to get in a district, no matter if it was represented by Maxine Waters or not. But it's apparent that with Joe, his heart never left the place. He had to leave, but his heart never left where he grew up at. He could have moved anywhere in the world when he got out of the U.S. Navy. Surely he's lived in other places where he could have made contacts and where he could have set up shop and prospered. But in his heart, he wanted to go back where he grew up and make a difference. But now here's the problem. You have somebody there that's been there since the 1970s, who moved from another state, who's never been there, who shows up using the political stratagems of the day, and the next thing you know, she's representing a people she's never been associated with. Never even been in that state before that. It's amazing. But this is not uncommon. The most popular example of this is when Hillary Clinton, who had never even lived in New York at all, buys a house in 1999 in Chappaqua, New York, just to establish a residency so that she can technically, legally run for the Senate seat for that state, for the state of New York. But she had never been there. She had never lived there at all. But she can come in, suddenly buy a house right before the election. Of course, she had the money to do it. Her husband was a president. And the next thing you know, she's qualified to run for the Senate in the state. How many qualified senators did not make it because this big name bulldozed her way in with money, bought a house, and suddenly considers herself a resident and person qualified to represent New York State. Yet she knows nothing of the people, nothing probably even of the geography, the issues and the troubles that the state itself is facing, that when the state is represented at a national level, does she know anything about the place? Never lived there. Yet good luck kicking her out. How many knowledgeable New Yorkers are not going to be able to represent their states when such a person gets so entrenched in a system of incumbency that it's near impossible to kick them out? And if you think about it, we've looked at other places around the world. When you have somebody that's been in power for so long and they keep winning elections after elections, even when there's a lot of discontent with what they're doing, we in this country look at them and go, oh, they must have some kind of election problems, or there's interference, or they're exerting their power to stay in power and they should have moved on by now. But you know what? It goes on right now when we have incumbents who have been in their seats for decades and refuse to do anything for their districts, anything for their states. Why? Because they can get away with it. They can literally get away with doing it. So I think about this conundrum that I have going on in my head. Well, if you only limit them to 2 terms, the second term, they're going to be a loose cannon, do what they want. There's no accountability on them. But at the same time, we have to have some kind of check on somebody having power for 30, 40 years in an office that, you know what, probably needs to start going to somebody else now. The idea of a professional politician sometimes offends me. That you can make money being a politician when they only pay so much means you must be getting it from somewhere in the first place. But nonetheless, what's the proper answer? I'm not presuming to know that answer today, but I definitely want to ask that question out loud. I want us to think about it. As this comes more and more to the surface, and I hope it does, because we have to start holding people accountable. They have literally been in office forever. As far as the political landscape is concerned, some of you listening to this, there are people who are in office longer than you've been alive. Now you think about that. And chances are they're not going to be replaced anytime soon through a typical election. Now tell me, do you think that is the way a republic should run? Again, I'm not presuming to know the answer, but that's something we surely need to think about. But maybe I'm just going to brainstorm this here as I close out. Maybe we need to think about it not in just the number of terms, but the number of terms and the length of those terms. I think both are an important consideration as this issue comes to the surface. And if there's a change to the Constitution and how we establish our representatives in the Congress, when we look at the term limits, we also need to look at the length of time they serve. If you just give someone 2 terms and it's a 6-year term, for example, like in the Senate, the first 6 years, they may act straight. But once they get elected the second term, they're going to be a loose cannon, and they're going to use those 6 years to accomplish whatever scheme they have, regardless of their constituencies, knowing that it doesn't matter if they win their election or not because they have to leave. So we have to understand that that's going to be a motivator in how our representatives act. So I'm thinking something else. Maybe we need to have, say, 2-year terms, 3-year terms, something small, and give them more than 2. Let's just say if we limit them to 2 terms and they were 6 years terms, that would give them a total of 12 years. But we have that danger I'm talking about in their second term where they don't care what they do because, they're not going to be voted in or out. But if they had shorter terms, say 2 years, 3 years at most, and they could have, say if it was 2-year terms, get 6-term limit, and that would be 12 years. And that's because you need a length of time to accomplish things and establish yourself within the circles that be in Washington. But at the same time, there comes a point where you got to go. And if they're, say, 3-year terms, then to limit them to 4 terms. So that means that they have a few terms they can be elected in, but at the same time, if on their last term they decide to go rogue and do what they want and go all hell's bells to accomplish some dream they have always wanted, regardless of whether constituents want it or not, they only have, say 2 or 3 years to accomplish it. And you can be on guard for it because you know it's their last term. Who knows the answer? These are things to think about. I know that in this case with Maxine Waters, a guy like Joe Collins is a welcome, refreshing change. He's from there. He's actually lived there. His heart is actually with those people. And he wants to do good things for that district. He left the service to accomplish this. He moved back to an area he was forced to leave when he was younger because of the situation there, hoping to make it better. Do you really think an incumbent, well entrenched for decades like Maxine, is that concerned about constituency that she takes for granted anyway? They're going to vote for her anyway, so she can just do what she wants. You know the way to change that complacency? And I'm not just talking to District 43 in California. I'm talking to every place around this country. Sometimes we need to upset people and throw them out on principle, either in your primaries or some other means, just to let them know that just because we voted you in doesn't mean you can do what you want and leave us here and we'll support you for decades without question. But getting that to happen apparently is difficult. Maybe we will have to go to term limits. But if we do that, maybe we need to consider they need to be shorter terms and you can do more terms so you have a maximum number of years you can accomplish to where we still have the option to vote you out. But at the same time, if you try to go crazy in your last term, it's a shorter term in which you can accomplish your damage before we can vote someone in to replace you yet again.
You've been listening to Rage of the Age. If you loved today's podcast, make sure to leave a review on the media you're listening through. Secure future episodes by heading over to rageoftheage.com and clicking the RSS feed button. Until next time, this has been Rage of the Age.